For proclaiming to be the only true church in existence whose focus is centered on family, it has driven a wedge within mine and has caused more damage than has ever helped me. They glorify that families can be together forever, far beyond the world that we know, while declaring their greatest heaven as celestial, and say it's where we should all thrive to go. My experience as an active church member rarely took me to a spiritual place. I just couldn't make myself believe in the fantasy that so many seem to embrace. My family instilled the church standards, affirming there was no other way life could be, but they weren't seeing the world as I was, which was often quite confusing to me. I learned at a very young age, in order to survive, I had to suppress what I feel, accept the demand of being compliant and protecting a purpose that didn't seem real. I would go to church on Sundays, where I was taught to love, honor, and obey, told I had to respect my elders and follow the examples of what they would do and say. It didn't matter that mine were abusive, that they controlled me by tearing me down, that the only time I ever saw them smiling was when other church members were around. I have spent my whole life searching for value beyond the beliefs that I was taught I must hold. I have managed to get through some hard struggles and how to survive in my own world. I took some misguided turns along the way. The journey wasn't always easy to bear. However, I've come a long way since then, and that's why it's easy to share. I've seen myself buried in addiction. There weren't many drugs I wasn't willing to try, never feeling that I was ever good enough, although I really couldn't understand why. Resorting at times to self-destruction, even running razors against my own flesh, hoping to feel something with meaning and get out what I couldn't express. I allowed others to use my body, believing that's all the value that I had to give, in hopes that someone would grow to love me and give me more reasons to live. I once believed so firmly that all I needed was others for my life to feel whole, never realizing that I was just running from my upbringing and the overwhelming control. My childhood was abusive and neglectful, and it really affected who I once became. It's no wonder that when I was raped the first time, I believed I was truly to blame. Denying my reality became a habit, drowning my sorrows with alcohol and drugs, surrounding myself with people who couldn't understand what it even meant to love. Being taken advantage of or spoken down to always seemed to be the path I would take. It was hard for me not to find broken people when broken was all I knew how to face. Friendships would form and I'd get attached just in time for those relationships to end, almost always for the same reasons, simply by me being honest with them. I don't know how to find people who won't eventually make me the butt of their jokes. I know I can be highly emotional, but few have ever listened to me when I've spoke. Having my family in my life is no different. The circle of deceit is always the same. I can't think of any I trust completely, but then again, that's just how I was raised. To analyze everyone around me and take notes on the way they would behave, always looking for the highest standard, rejecting anything that wasn't the Mormon way, belittling those who did things different, even when we were belittling our own, holding ourselves as grander for following the church teachings better than others have done. I don't know how to relate to this mindset that so many seem to carry around, where the answer to all of life's questions is inside some heavenly plan. How am I supposed to have faith in those teachings when I can't even feel safe on this earth? And am I really supposed to believe what I'm fighting for is a chance to feel more insecure? It's not enough to suppress my emotions. I have to be longing for my great big reward, the chance to share my husband with other women and help populate a new world. And where will I find my eternal family if we all have the same goals in mind? If we're separated on our own planets, isn't that a contradiction to how eternal is defined? When you're born into the church, it's a given that it's something that you need to accept. Problem was, I was a person who could see through the mentality of another's hidden contempt. You tend to spend your life observing people when you know that you're not really seen. And I've realized that those who are actually genuine are few and far between. Many build their lives on church doctrine, claiming it's the most rewarding thing that they know. But with what I've experienced in my lifetime, I wonder if it's really about putting on a show. One that my family wanted me to follow blindly while protecting an image they had to maintain. It was like they had two different faces and expected me to live my life the same. My honesty was always unwelcome because it didn't comply with the things that they would say. They told me that I was nothing but an embarrassment for not seeing reality their way. I always wanted to believe that there was more than the Mormon principles instilled in our minds. With the family not willing to look beyond their beliefs, they thought it was okay to devalue mine. They have pushed me to the depths of depression while trying to control who I would become, never allowing me to believe for a moment that it was okay for me to be who I am. They dismissed my need for understanding, insisted going to church was how to find my way, stating that the solution to all of life's problems was to get down on my knees and pray. They have only ever been willing to look at the world in the way that they want to, while conveying every thought that they have in an effort of impacting whatever I do. Planting their little seeds of doubt has always been their greatest strength. It has caused me to live my life in fear, to withdraw, and to isolate. Perhaps they thought that needing them would fool me into thinking I wasn't alone. Instead, it has made me feel unsafe and desperate, like a prisoner in my own home. They had me convinced for a long time that there was something fundamentally wrong with me, and it has never mattered how hard I have tried, I can't communicate with them effectively. I can't figure out how their perception on life is so different than the one I have known, why it's easier to discredit my integrity than owning up to what they've often shown. Reality is they've deceived me, belittled me with dominance while turning a blind eye to the fact that I was hurting so terribly, shaken in fear and feeling broken inside. I refuse to believe that my character is so flawed, no matter what they carry on with and say. It's convenient how they always leave out how I've pleaded, tried to reason with them, and stay. It's such a hard feeling to carry, knowing that most will never see the things that I see, when their shunning of me is just as easy as discrediting any of the good qualities about me. I realize that my family believes that my value doesn't fit anywhere on our family's tree, because if I really wanted to be valued, I would have been exactly who they told me to be. A person of faith in the Mormon gospel, who will believe and accept everything that they say, who will never search for my own answers and only read written words the church deems okay. I don't know why I'm wired different, why I haven't been able to just embrace what they think, why I can't rank church leaders as all-knowing and hold firm to the words that they preach. I want to believe that God stands for love, the unconditional and unwavering kind, the type that's not so confining, that doesn't have to consume and control my mind. His love for his children treated equal, not to be measured on willingness to conform to a life that takes away the individual and turns them into a like-minded clone. I don't think that it's so unreasonable to believe my life's purpose is in my own hands, that there's no chosen pathway to follow or some mapped-out lifelong plan. I'll never believe in the notion that it's God's will that is guiding their hearts, reminding me of how I'm not worthy and should be living in fear for not doing my part, and walking united beside my family, no matter how they choose to love or condemn, while carrying the weight on my shoulders that I'm not even free to be honest with them. Not because I have anything to be ashamed of, or a fear that I have something to hide. It's as simple as simply saying that they just don't like who I am on the inside. They focus on my vulnerabilities in order to shut me down when I find courage to speak, reaffirm that my voice is irrelevant, which leaves me feeling powerless and weak. The core of my family is broken, yet I'm the only one feeling lost and despair, that none of their obligation or guilt talk will ever help what's in need of repair. I keep saying the same things over and over, and it's not as if I'm asking for anything big, just my right to be a human person and live the life that I've chosen to live. It's not up to them to save me, because the fears they carry are not even my own. You see, I don't believe that I'm destined for darkness as my eternal home. If there's really a God, then he knows me and has seen all that I've gone through. He knows what's inside of my heart and understands why I live life like I do. Imposing their will doesn't help me, and it's unfair for them to believe that it can. And trying to control every aspect of my personality is something I just can't understand. I don't know why it's so hard to send the message that the constant criticism is tearing me apart, that I can't spend my whole life asking permission to have my own feelings and thoughts. They want me to believe that I'm delusional and that their constant rejection is what I deserve, while expecting me to live a life of silence as they damage me with their broken words, taking their pleas to other believers, discussing their rationales as to why I'm so lost, exaggerating care and concern for my well-being so they can build up their ego in the process. I have seen many in my life get rewarded by being a phony perception of who they really are, so having the desire to be a genuine person has proven that being real doesn't get you very far. I'm losing my faith in all of humanity because life taught me a long time ago that I can never love a person enough to keep them from tearing at my inner soul. I'm so tired of feeling the heartache that keeps me petrified in constant fear. Too scared to take the life I was granted, but also too scared to hold firmly here. Few have ever taken the time to really know me. I only need one hand to count them all. For most, I was just a temporary solution, and building themselves up by keeping me small. Abandonment would always follow, once they realized I was no longer playing the game, one that places them on a pedestal above me, while I live a life buried in their unwanted shame. It has happened so much in my lifetime that the trauma is getting harder and harder to endure, yet I'm supposed to believe that embracing the Mormon Church is really the ultimate cure, when the emphasis of the eternal family is more important than anything in our daily lives, because believing in something that can't be proven matters more than a family divide. The tribe-like mentality the Church creates, that only welcomes those with like-minded minds, has been so exhausting for me to live through and has taken so much of my valuable time living in a mind full of chaos, with constant turmoil weighing down on my heart, trying to convince myself that I matter, even though no one has ever cared about how I felt. I don't know how I'm supposed to function when I'm being pushed to live inside a Mormon lie. I know I'm not responsible for others' perceptions, so why am I the one being forced to hide? I will never be willing to live in a world where the need to compete has taken over my family, when the only way for them to feel valued inside is by creating constant, unwarranted rivalry. Always able to shift focus from self-accountability by weighing in on what someone else lacks, failing to understand that their opinions have no influence on the idea of me ever reverting back to the mindset and principles that are rooted so deeply inside the members of the Mormon Church. The codependency and believing that others are responsible for helping you measure your worth. Teachings that tell us that we are to shelter our lives by not allowing any non-conforming people in. Some taking this all so literally that they actively destroy relationships with family and friends. Trusting my own intuition was always credited to the miraculous gift of a spiritual Holy Ghost. Yet when my intuition told me I needed to escape my abusers, I was met with their raging fists. Even my effort to reach out to faithful church leaders was always dismissed as childish lies. My family's deception was so rehearsed that by the age of 12 I just wanted to die. One thing I do know for certain, that with my family I'm not worthy of love. They have actively spent my life trying to sour my relationships just so they couldn't evolve. It's always the same old pattern. They're relentless until they've taken me down, having pride in their ability to blind others while firmly stomping my name to the ground. Their irrational thinking and the gaslighting has taken away any hopes for my family to mend, because treating me with even a basic level of respect is something they just can't comprehend. The only time I'm ever acknowledged is when they're trying to get certain behaviors out of me, whilst often a flawless performance of pretending that we're all a close, tight-knit family. Constantly setting all of my needs aside because theirs are far more important than my own, while expecting me to offer them mounds of great praise for every little thing that they've done. I'm the only person carrying the responsibility that requires self-reflection for any real change. I have spent most of my life doing the research, but they reject all I say just the same. It's taken years of punishing myself to realize that their mindset has never really been about me. I have just been the convenient scapegoat that so many in my life have needed me to be. I can't help but wonder if maybe my family members didn't need the church to lean on, that perhaps they would think more freely and not believe that all their thoughts have to be one. It saddens me that life with them has never turned out the way I thought it should be, and that my need for them can no longer outweigh what it means to just break free. What's most heartbreaking to me is that I've realized that it's not even me that they want. It's really about the image of that perfect family that they can't seem to live without. Being surrounded by others still feels empty when you know it's not even you that they see, when your greatest purpose is merely a reflection of what your family expects you to be. I desperately wanted to believe that loving them would be enough for me to belong, and it sure hasn't been easy to accept that it's time for me to admit to myself that I'm wrong. They will continue to live in denial while making grand statements that aren't even true, like the notion that I'm just expected to believe that I'm a valuable part of the family too. There's nothing about their actions that ever line up with the things that they say, and I can't spend my life causing damage to my well-being just so their ego's okay. If instead I was taught to stand on my own 2 feet and believe in the value of the eternal me, then maybe life wouldn't have had to feel so bad and more like an enjoyable journey. I know I will have to spend the rest of my life trying to console the lost child I carry within, teaching her how to find love and value in herself while always trying to start again. No one else will ever speak up for me, so I'll say it as clear as I can. I'm a beautiful person inside and out, and I'm proud of the person I am.